So then we're going to go down to our Team Explorer, and we're actually going to make this open source. So I'm going to go to clone a Git repository. Alright, so we're going to pick new solution. And we're going to make a web app. It's going to put it into the Leafly TypeScript. I'm going to call this I'm going to go ahead and add App Insights. It's easy enough. So we're going to build our single page application hosting in Azure, and we're not going to worry about authentication right now. We're also not going to worry about unit tests, but we will potentially add some coded UI tests later. So when I say I want to deploy in Azure, it's going to try and help me set up a new website to deploy to. So I'm going to pick Leafly Test as the site name. There's going to be no database for this. So now we have our basic website that we can start editing. One of the first decisions you have to make when deciding how you're going to build your website is what components are you going to use to deliver the markup to the client? How is the client going to call back your server? How is data going to be bound into the page or constructed? And there are lots of options available today. There are frameworks obviously like AngularJS, which are full featured everything in the box that you would need to do for a web app. But we're going to actually try and compose our website using ASP.NET MVC, using Web API and MVC controllers to deliver data and markup to our clients. And then callbacks are going to be done on the server using jQuery's Ajax, and data will be bound into the page using Knockout. It's important that we understand each of these components and why we're using them. So I'm going to briefly go into how we're going to use our MVC controllers, our Web API controllers, how Knockout's going to fit into all of that, and how we are going to use the MVVM design pattern for building this site. So to start, we want to look at MVC controllers. Now unfortunately, MVC controllers have a lot of history that we currently don't really care for. In traditional web development, we would use the MVC controllers, or the only controllers at the time, to handle everything in terms of transitioning views, populating data within the view, sending the view data up to the server so that it could rehydrate the next screen, and all those fun things. So we don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff today. Our MVC controllers really are a way to begin a workflow. That's how I like to talk about them. So if we look at our controllers folder, I like to think of the home controller as the way to get to each of the main workflows that the site is going to support. Each of those workflows is going to be one of the action methods within the controller. In the context of this Leafly API test site, let's have two workflows. One for searching strains and strain-related information, and the other searching for locations and location-related information. And that lines up well with how their API is designed. So let's go ahead and add those two workflows. Public action result, as always. In our MVC controllers, we're always returning markup as an action result. And we all know MVC is convention based, and by returning view here, we know that it's going to look for a view called strain. One of the nice refactoring things is we can add this and say we know there's going to be a view with that name, and let Visual Studio help us. So you see I named it with the same name as the method name. Always we're going to have without model as the template. And that's because we're not doing traditional MVC where the controller has to use a model to build the markup that will be sent to the client. Instead, the client is going to receive a model and have it bound. It's not going to be a partial view because this is the beginning of a workflow. Every major workflow is going to be a complete view, and it's going to use the layout specified in view start. And we get a very familiar looking screen where we have our view bag set to the title of the page and just strain as the content. Do that again for location. One more thing we have to do before we can actually view the pages is remove this authorize attribute. This requires that the user is logged in or somehow authorized to see our page. And like we talked about earlier, that we're not going to require this, at least for now. So I can run it. Alright, so by going to the /home/strain route, we're at the strain workflow page, and if we go location, we're at the location workflow starting page.